So I just got to a new algorithm challenge for the FreeCodeCamp algorithm section. It is basic algorithm scripting number 3, factorialize a number. And as you probably expect, this one was really hard. Um, so when I finally figured out how to do it, of course I decided to record my solution and so that you guys can look at it yourselves and kind of compare to your own, or you guys can look at it and figure out how to actually solve this challenge because it is quite tricky, especially if this is my first time with JavaScript and the algorithms. It's a lot to take in, and the way they kind of explain what to do here, it isn't really helpful. So let's first look at what they want us to do so that way we can know what we have here. So return the factorial of the provided integer. Okay, next we need to figure out what a factorial is. Hopefully, you know, um, we can we know. But basically, if the integer is represented with the letter n, a factorial is the product of all positive integers less than or equal to n. So I had to read that about 3 times just to, get everything that it was saying to me here. So basically, like they show here, if the number that we have to factor is 5, then the way we would do that is take all the numbers that are less than and equal to 5 and multiply them together to get a product, which in this case would be 120. Okay, so now that we have that, we have to figure out a way to do this with any number that's passed in. So we have a function here that they created for us already, and it is called Factorialize, and it takes in an argument called num. And we can see down here that it calls the Factorialize function and it passes in number 5. Okay, so where do we start? This, first of all, I'm just going to go ahead and delete that return statement. We will have it back again, but first we need to start by trying to come up with a solution, something that will work for us that can give us the results we need with any number that's passed in. So first of all, how can we get the number that's passed in to factorialize? How can 5 become, 1 times 2 times 3 times 4 times 5 if we don't even know what numbers are after it? My first thought was to create a for loop, so that's exactly what I did. I said for var I is equal to, I set it equal to 1 because 1 would be the lowest number that could factorialize in 5. So I set it equal to 1 at first. And then, I just finished the for loop. It can run as long as I is either less than or equal to the number that is passed in. So the number that is passed in is what it can go as long as. And that the reason I said less than or equal to is because in the directions it says it'll be the product of all positive integers less than or equal to. So that's kind of my hint to go ahead and use that condition. And then every time it goes by, it'll do the same thing. It'll go up by 1. Okay, so now that we have our for loop created, we have to figure out what it's going to do from here. So how can we get all the numbers that are less than the number that's passed in and store them in one place? My mind goes to an array. So I think of how I can get an array and build upon it by passing in each number all the way until it gets to the number I want to factorialize. And I can do that by creating an array outside of the for loop because we're going to have to access this array outside of the for loop once we create the condition. So I'm going to go ahead and just create an array and name it anything I want to. Array of numbers. I'm going to set it equal to an empty array initially. Okay, so now that this array has a scope of global, it can be accessed within the for loop and outside of it, which is what we need it to be. Okay, great. So from here, what I'm going to do is I have to find a way to add the value of I into my array every time the loop goes around. And I was thinking about the things that we learned in the past exercises. And one of the functions that JavaScript has for arrays is the push function. And what that function does is it pushes a value to the back of an array. And that was perfect for what we need to do in this case. So what we can do is literally call our array that we created, array of numbers, and we know initially right now it is empty. So that array is empty as of now. But what we want to do is once our for loop starts, we want to push the value of I into that array. So the first time that the for loop runs, the value of I will be 1. So what we would do is we would add the number 1 into that array. So now once this for loop runs the first time, the array will have a value of 1 at index 0. Okay, great. And then the even better part is that it will run for as long as the num value, in our case the first one will be 5. So as long as I is less than 5 or equal to 5, it'll run, which is exactly what we needed to do. So that means by the time this for loop ends, this array will have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 inside of it, which is exactly what we need. Okay, so what should we do next? Now that we have this array set up and it has all the numbers that we needed to, and I should mention too that if this number were to change, say we would put 8 in here, and we call the function Factorialize, then the for loop will run exactly the same way as it did with 5. Instead of having it to 1 through 5, it'll have 1 through 8 in the array instead, which is perfect. Okay, so we have it in there, and we did that using the push function. So how can we get it to multiply the values inside of that array? Once we get to multiply the values inside of the array, we'll have factorialized the number, and that's all we have to do. Well, we can use the function that was also taught in a past lesson called reduce. And that function basically takes an array and it reduces the values inside of it to one number. And that's what we needed to do. And it reduces them by multiplying the numbers inside of it, which is exactly what we need to do to factorialize our number. So what we can do is create a new variable, and I'm going to call it condense. And this condense variable can be equal to our array of numbers, and we can call the reduce method on this array. What does the reduce method take as a parameter or an argument? Well, it takes a callback. So we put a function in there, and the first argument of that function will be A, and then the second one will be B. And basically, the accumulator is the first one, which is A. And if we have an option to set a value for the accumulator, but in our case we don't need to because initially it sets it to the first value of the array. So in our case, if we pass in 8 or 5 or any number, the first number will be 1. So A is equal to 1, which is perfect. And then the second value is our counter, or our next I call it a counter. The counter will be equal to the second or the next value inside of the array. So if the first one is 1, the second one would be 2. And then we can run an operation on those two values. So we can say return A times B. And what that would do is literally multiply the first one, the second one. Then the second one would then become A, and the next number will become B. And it would just keep doing that until it's gone through every single value in our array, which is what we needed to do in order to factorialize any number we pass in. Okay, so now that we have this all set up, it kind of looks confusing, but really it's just how we can do it step by step. We started by making an array to hold our numbers that are less than or equal to our factorial. And then we made a for loop that would iterate through, and as long as I is less than the number we passed in, and each time it goes around, it would add I to our array, I being the number that it is currently on. And then once we finish adding numbers to that array, we would jump out of the for loop and we would go down to creating a variable named condense that would then call our array of numbers, and then on that array of numbers we would call the reduce function, which simply put takes the numbers inside of the array, multiplies them by each other, which is what we need to do in order to factorialize the number we pass in. Now that we're done with that, all we have to do from here is return the value of condense, because that value currently holds the numbers from the array multiplied together, which is exactly what we need to get the factorial of a number. So if we do this, it should work. But wait, it's not going to. It's not going to work. And why is that? Oh my gosh, this part right here I got so stuck on and I did not know why. And it's probably really stupid, but I seriously didn't know why I could pass every single one of the tests right here, all the way down to the one that shouldn't, even exist. Because, I was up here and I was like, wait, any number times zero is zero. So what do you want me to do from here? And it says here that all must be positive integers. And the number after zero or before zero will be a negative one. So there's no way that it could do that. But I thought about it and I was like, maybe I should just add a check above it just to make sure that if the number that's passed into my function does happen to be zero, just return something. So that's what I kind of did. I said if the number happens to be equal to zero, so if number is equal to zero, if it happens to be equal to zero, all I want you to do is return 1. That's all I want you to do. And if it's not, then go ahead and continue on like you usually would with the for loop, and then creating the factorial with the condense variable. Now let's see if this test will work for us. And it does. So, I mean, this is a considerably hard challenge, and I know from experience that when you are trying to like apply for boot camps or anything like that, this is one of the problems or algorithm challenges that you're usually given, as how to factorialize a number or how to create a a process that will factorialize a number that's passed in. And so we can see here that just using two of the built-in JavaScript functions, push and reduce, we can create a system for factorializing a number. And it does seem kind of complex at first, but once you kind of take a moment to break down how we want to do it and the instructions that are given, we can kind of figure out how to do it. So hopefully this helps in some way. If not, leave a comment and I'll try to help you out. Other than that, thanks for watching. Have a great day.